Good afternoon, Dunkirk and Fredonia listeners, and welcome back to News at Noon. News at Noon is brought to you by Fredonia Radio Systems on WCVF 88.9 and WDVL 89.5. I'm News Director Lee Pye here today with my news assistants Dan Quagliana, Sara Lodespoto, Joshua Ribakove, as well as Hunter Halterman, and Sports Director Matt Volz. With this top of the hour update, we'll bring you the latest on SUNY Fredonia's campus news and events, sports, weather, and music, as well as national and international news. First up, let's go to the event bulletin for this week. Sigma Tau Delta and Writers Ring is collabing to host an open mic. Anyone can join the event to show off their works of writing, poetry, magic tricks, playing live music, and more. The event will be held in the Fenton Lounge, where the vending machines are on the first floor, and will be on October 28th at 3 p.m. Sound Services is hosting Rocktoberfest. Rocktoberfest will feature performances from Eldwood Creek, the Ryan Terry Family Band, and We Were Blank. All are welcome to join us for pizza and a costume contest. The event will be held on Sunday, October 29th from 5 to 9 p.m. in the Williams Center MPR. Dr. Emily Schiller's talk, Gradually Then Suddenly, How Techno-Optimism Took Over Philanthropy. This talk will focus on the rise of financialized language like return on investment and the acceleration of philanthropy, focused on artificial intelligence, space travel, and humanity's long-term future. The event will be hosted on Wednesday, November 1st from 12 to 1 p.m. in the Williams Center S204 ABCD. That's it for the information through the grapevines. Next up, we'll bring it to Dan for our latest campus news updates.
Thanks, Lee. After the postponement of Carl Holz's residency, Writers at Work has invited Fredonia alumni Emily Stenson to hold a residency, who graduated in 2021 with a Bachelor in Science in Molecular Genetics. Her residency has been titled Sustaining Medical Humanities as an Ethical and Interdisciplinary Field. Stenson will reflect on work she completed at Fredonia and beyond as she emphasizes the importance of the humanities in the medical field, as well as why good communication is essential for those looking to enter the field. She will hold various lectures and seminars throughout her residency, which will be held on Tuesday, November 7th. All events that she'll be taking part in will be free and open to the public. More information, as well as Stenson's specific itinerary, can be found on Fredonia's website. For the first time since 2019, Safe Halloween will be held in Mason Hall on Saturday, October 28th. Organized by Percussion Guild and sponsored by Student Association, Safe Halloween is where children aged 14 and younger can come on campus inside Mason Hall. Members of on-campus clubs and organizations will be stationed inside practice rooms on Mason's second floor, where families can come and enjoy a safe Halloween without worrying about going house to house. There will be various signs across Mason Hall pointing children and parents in the right direction, including trick-or-treating that will also lead toward live musical performances, said Joseph Fiumano, co-president of the Percussion Guild and a senior music education major. Safe Halloween wasn't held in the last few years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Fredonia's Coordinator of Special Collections and Archives, Amanda Shep, has been awarded the Certified Archivist Award by the National Academy of Certified Archivists. As Coordinator of the Archives, Shep works in Reed Library, where she manages and maintains the university's historical documents, which contain things that can't be found anywhere else in the world. In order to win the award, Shep took and passed an examination, which is administered by the Academy. In order to pass the examination, which has been described as notoriously difficult by archivists across the country, Shep had to prove that she had a, quote, sufficient amount of archives-related work experience, end quote, as well as a sufficient formal education in the subject. Shep received a high pass score on the exam to be certified by the Academy. That's it for campus news. Now let's send it back to Lee.
Thanks, Dan. Next up, we have local news. The local author Clark Zlatchu will be presenting a reading of his works at Sinclairville Free Library. He is the author of 19 published works, 5 fiction novels, 2 thrillers, and a collection of short stories. His works have been shown in Crossways Literary Magazine, Scrutiny Journal, The Fictional Cafe, and many other literary journals in the U.S. This event will be at the Sinclairville Free Library, located on 15 Main Street in Sinclairville, and the event is on Monday at 6 p.m. As of now, there have been over 50 drug overdoses in Chautauqua County, and more than 65% of them have occurred in Jamestown. In October, the Jamestown Police Department investigated 33 deaths from drug overdoses. This year has already far exceeded the number of drug overdoses from 2022. Steve Kilburn, who is the county mental hygiene from the county mental hygiene department, said, quote, "When we see the deaths, we almost always are looking at fentanyl poisoning," end quote. Through September, Jamestown police officers have responded to 183 suspected drug overdoses. So even though there have been 50 deaths, there are still many more drug overdoses happening. A 20-year-old Jamestown man is facing charges after allegedly displaying a knife and threatening multiple students in front of Jefferson Middle School. The charges consist of fourth-degree criminal possession of weapon, 5 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, and 5 counts of a second-degree menacing. Following the incident, Jamestown Public Schools released the statement, quote, "Please talk with your children about the importance of not talking to strangers, or if any stranger approaches them, to report it immediately to a trusted adult," end quote. That's it for local news. Let's take it to the sports guy, Matt Volz.
Thanks, Lee. The women's soccer team finished their season with a 1-0 win over New Paltz on Saturday. Freshman Gabby Irwin scored the game's only goal, and Blue Devils goalkeeper Abby Simkowiak made 7 saves. Their final record on the season sits at 6-8-2. The men's soccer team was on the road Saturday, finishing their season with a 3-0 loss at the hands of New Paltz. Their season ends with a record of 5-8-4. The men's swimming and diving team hosted Hobart College on Saturday, falling by a final score of 125-65, despite 6 first-place finishers. Their record dropped to 0-2 with the loss, and they'll be back at home this Saturday when they take on Baldwin Wallace. The women's swimming and diving team took on William Smith College on Saturday, falling by a final score of 227-62. The loss was the team's first of the season, and the 1-1 Blue Devils will look to rebound next Saturday when they take on Baldwin Wallace. The men's and women's cross-country teams will be competing this Saturday in the SUNYAC Championship hosted by SUNY Oneonta. The men's race will begin at 11 a.m. while the women will take off at noon. The volleyball team played in their final home games of the season this past weekend, losing both. After a 3-0 loss to a powerhouse Cortland team on Friday, the Blue Devils took the first 2 sets from Oswego on Saturday before ultimately losing the next 3 to lose the game. Fredonia's record dropped to 3-17 with the losses, and they'll be on the road this weekend for a pair of SUNYAC matchups, starting with a trip to Potsdam at 6 p.m. on Friday. And finally, the hockey team hosted the Eastern Hockey League All-Stars on Friday night, coming away with a 3-2 overtime win. The Blue Devils also traveled to Buffalo for a scrimmage with Buff State on Saturday, resulting in a 2-2 tie. Their regular season begins on Friday in Angola, Indiana, as they take on Trine University. Fredonia's first home game is slated for 7 p.m. on Friday, November 10th, when they take on Buff State. Well, the Buffalo Sabres brought back their alternate black and red throwback uniforms on Saturday night, a game which they defeated the New York Islanders 3-1. Backup goaltender Eric Comrie was sensational for Buffalo, stopping 24 of 25 Islander shots. In fact, the Islanders' only goal was a shot that bounced off of Sabres defenseman Connor Clifton. Buffalo improved to 2-3 with the win, and they're back at home tonight for a 7 p.m. puck drop against the Montreal Canadiens. And finally, for the third straight week, the Buffalo Bills put on an embarrassing performance, falling to the New England Patriots 29-25. Buffalo's offense, supposedly one of the top groups in the league, scored 3 points in the first half against a New England defense that had given up an average of 31 points per game over the previous 3 weeks. The loss dropped the Bills' record to 4-3, and they have a short week coming up as they play host to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday night. That's it for your sports update. Let's send it to Sara for the weather.
Now, here is your Northern Chautauqua weather update brought to you by Fredonia Radio Systems.
Make way for the sun, y'all, because after a cloudy weekend, I'm looking forward to this. At 55 degrees, today has a light cloud covering with the sun gleaming down on us. Hold on to your hats because it's going to be windy. The classic gloomy fall clouds return at night in the mid-40s. Don't worry. Most of the clouds will disappear the next day. The sun brings warmer temperatures on Tuesday with a high of 71. I know, very different from the 50-degree temperatures last week. We're still in October, so beware of the strong breeze. That evening will be fairly warm in the low 60s. That's it for your 2-day forecast. Keep listening, and I'll be back with the rest of your 5-day forecast. For now, let's take it to Lee for our local music update.
Last Call is hosting at BJ's. 4 bands on November 2nd, where you'll be hearing Ethic Committee, Auto Ignition, Bliss Fields, and TTTT with Jacob King, which is what you're listening to now. BJ's is at 51 West Main Street in Fredonia. Doors are at 9 p.m. and music is at 10 p.m. That's all I have for music news this week. Let's bring it to Josh for our national and international news.
This weekend, the Rafah border crossing between Israel and Gaza opened up to allow trucks carrying much-needed aid through to Gaza. 20 trucks came through on Saturday, 14 trucks on Sunday, and another 20 trucks are expected to follow through today. According to a press release from the United Nations on Saturday, quote, the 20 trucks brought in desperately needed items such as medical supplies, tins of tuna and tomato paste, wheat flour, and enough drinking water for 22,000 people for a day. Hundreds more trucks are on the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing awaiting entry, end quote. They also explained the catastrophic state of Gaza, with water systems operating at about 5% of their capacity and Gaza's hospital being stretched out way too thin. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, stated yesterday that their fuel supplies will be gone in a few days as they continue to aid over 400,000 people. It's been nearly 3 weeks since we have had a House Speaker, and the House of Representatives continues to remain at a halt. Jim Jordan, a Republican representative from Ohio, failed to gather enough support from his fellow Republicans and kept losing more and more votes as he tried for the nomination 3 times. Now, a total of 9 Republicans are seeking nomination to become Speaker of the House as the divide continues to grow. Today, the 9 contenders are expected to participate in a forum so that there may be a vote tomorrow to narrow down the list of candidates running. And on Friday, Last Friday, Nebraska's Representative Mike Flood launched a unity pledge to rally members to pledge unified support for the speaker-designate. The pledge states, quote, House Republicans need to select a speaker as soon as possible in order to return to work on behalf of the American people. It is time to put politics and personalities aside and unite behind the next Republican conference choice for speaker, end quote. At least 6 of the representatives running for nomination have signed Flood's pledge. A 39-year-old rock climber is facing a number of attempted murder charges after his arrest on Thursday. Samson Zebturia Garner was arrested by the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office in Oregon while in possession of 2 9mm handguns and an AR-15. The county's district attorney, Steve Gunnels, claims that investigators have encountered Garner's journal entries with personal belongings that indicated his intent to attack the Smith Rock Cragun Classic, a 3-day climbing festival hosted by the American Alpine Club. The club expressed their gratitude to law enforcement through a Twitter post on Friday. The district attorney stated that, quote, Garner was prepared for it. He had driven 2.5-3 hours to Deschutes County, where he apparently intended to carry out the attack, and he was armed for it, end quote. Samson Zebturia Garner is expected to be arraigned next Monday. That does it for today's national and international news. Let's take it back to Sara for the rest of this week's forecast.
To those of you that like cold weather, I regret to inform you that this is not the week for your cozy sweaters. Look, I'm only a messenger. I don't make these temperatures. Wednesday is in the low 70s with strong winds and rain. Hey, at least now I can't complain about being freezing and wet. At night, it is partially cloudy at 61 degrees. Thursday is a day for short sleeves and jeans since it will be a cloudy 75. These clouds multiply into the evening in the low 60s. Halloween weekend is just around the corner, as we discussed this Friday. Following this week's trends, it will be in the low 70s with clouds looming over the sun. Later into your spooky night, it will be in the mid-50s with constant changes of drizzle to heavier rain. That's it for your 5-day forecast. Let's take it right back to Lee.
That'll wrap up for today's edition of News at Noon. Campus News is written and read by Dan Quagliana. Local news for this broadcast is prepared by Lee Pye. Weather is presented by Sara Lodespoto. Sports is presented by Matt Volz. Music's prepared by Lee Pye. National and international news is presented by Joshua Ribakove. And finally, board operations for this broadcast are performed by Hunter Halterman. Thanks for tuning in to News at Noon. Join us every Monday and Wednesday at 12 p.m. on WCVF 88.9 and WDVL 89.5. From all of us at Fredonia Radio Systems, have a beautiful day.